It is a Monday morning post-Eagle victory episode of Birds 365. I've only had one out of those, and it's been a while. Good to be with the Eagles fans. This is Birds 365. I'm your host, Jody McDonald. Sitting beside me today is none other than Jeff Kerr, my dutiful fill-in co-host. How are you this morning, Mr. Kerr?
I can't complain. The Eagles won, and their slim playoff hopes, if we want to call it that, are still alive.
That's we did discuss that at length last week. We'll do so more so today, but we want to get the nuts and the bolts of the game. And John McMullen, my usual co-host, doing a guest spot at the top of the hour in the airport thing, hops aboard with us. Johnny Mac, how was that Eagle game yesterday? What was it like to be in the stadium in Charlotte?
Yeah, it was a strange game. You're going to get some airport noise. So I apologize for that to begin with. But yeah, I mean, it was a tale of two halves, obviously, and it looked really ugly at the end of the first half. And I joked, that Jake Elliott field goal, which was 58 yards, you go back to the Super Bowl season, the 61-yard winner against the Giants, that ignited everybody. I don't think they're going to make a Super Bowl run, but that was a big kick. And special teams was a big part of it. Defense was a big part of it. Offense was not a big part of it. So they picked those guys up, and you got to give Jalen Hurts credit for staying the course and making some plays in the second half. But it was an ugly offensive game, and we got off. Jody, you and I talked about this a lot. People wanted to throw Jonathan Gannon out with the bathwater, and I kept telling them it's going to be different this week because of the opponent, and you got to add that context as well on Overreaction Monday because Tampa Bay is coming up real quick.
Yeah.
John, one thing I took notice of, and it was really early in the game, just a couple minor defensive adjustments, but Darius Slay seemed to be on DJ Moore a lot. They had him traveling a bit. Did you notice that early on?
Yeah, he made a couple tweaks. I mean, Davion Taylor played more. TJ Edwards, he sort of had that run-stuffing defensive linebacker group and then went back to the pass group. So, I mean, he's trying to put it together with not much talent there. Slay did travel a little bit more. I think that had more to do, again, with the quarterback. I think you feel more comfortable doing different things. And they blitzed a little bit more. And they didn't want to blitz Patrick Mahomes. They didn't think it would be an effective plan. I kind of agree with them. You never know because you didn't see it. But I thought the plan against Kansas City was sound. I thought the execution was poor. And I think the plan was sound for Carolina. The execution was a little bit better. And a lot of that has to do with lesser talent on that side of the ball. And, the weakness of the Panthers any week is their offensive line. And they lost Cam Irvin, who's their left tackle. So they had to move Taylor Moton, the left tackle. They had to start Brady Christensen, a rookie right tackle. And the Eagles' defensive line ate him up all day. So even when you say there's 3 sacks, I think there were 8 hurries. Sam Darnold was not comfortable at any point in this game. Those guys dominated up front.
A couple of things that jumped out to me after the game ended. I saw Nick Sirianni's post-game press conference and quotes. He hit the nail right on the head. This was a team win. You kind of already touched on a couple of things, John. Offense didn't do anything for a full half and then made plays in the second half when they needed to. Hurts with his legs. Special teams, the big field goal by Elliott, the block punt, biggest play of the game, and the defense coming up bigger than they had been. You're right to note the opponent because the Eagles got a little bit of a break. You remember, John, I told you last week what scared me most about this matchup was McCaffrey. And on Friday when we were on, he was doubtful. He was questionable. By Saturday, he was doubtful. By Sunday, he was out in Sydney standing on the sidelines. Chuba Hubbard went for 100, which means they still have to be better against the run. They were slightly better, but they still need to improve. But Christian McCaffrey being out of the game, I think, was a major factor in this one. playing a team effort across the board, every aspect of the team contributing, and then a little luck with some injuries to the other side equals an Eagle win. I think Sirianni had it right, calling a team win across the board.
Yeah, it was everybody sort of contributing, and that's rare when you have offense, defense, special teams contributing to a win. So you do want to play up that part of it. The offense, by making plays, as you mentioned, a couple big plays in the second half, at least were able to get in on the party, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, look, Christian McCaffrey's their best player. So yeah, I think if you're down 15-3 and McCaffrey's on the field, you're probably going to lose that game because he's going to be able to make a play at some point that probably stems the tide. They didn't have that ability, and I don't know what's from the way Matt Rule sounded, it certainly seemed like they were being extra cautious on McCaffrey, and if it were, say, a playoff game, he probably would have played. I've been that was a theme of mine during the week, Jody. I don't know what this Carolina team thinks they are, but they act like they're a contender, and they act like they're a really good football team. And they had a really soft part of their schedule early, and I thought they bought into it, and I think it bit them, and I expected it to bite them.
John, one of the things I took notice in this game was, and we already touched base now, the offense just looked inept for really 3 quarters. And then Jalen Hurts gets that great throw off while being hit to Quez Watkins. That kind of got everything going there. Like, how much of a factor has Quez put in this football team this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's been big. I've been arguing for a couple weeks that he should be getting more playing time than Jalen Reagor. Now, part of it is that they use Quez in certain situations, and anytime you increase the volume, the opposing defense is probably going to pay more attention. So there's no guarantee that consistency of production is going to carry over with more playing time, more touches, because he'll become more of a focus of the opposing defense. But I think he's earned the right to at least, prove that he can be that type of player. And I think Jalen Reagor is kind of earning the opposite, and the fact that he's making too many mistakes. And whether it's as a kick returner, receiver, you see constant mistakes and you don't see the development you would probably like. I would like to see more playing time for Quez Watkins, who has been a big play guy for this team. Again, I don't know if Carolina was all over the bubble screens, the swing routes. It doesn't matter who you had. Nobody was getting anything on those. And I thought that was a big criticism of Nick Sirianni. Look, when they're playing like that, you got to go over the top, even if it doesn't work, just to say, oh, they're willing to do that. Fake the bubble screen, go over the top. I thought it took them way too long to do that. And if it were a different opponent, it probably would have taken them too long. But Carolina was really struggling offensively, and it didn't hurt them. But I think it is a legitimate concern to point out that, man, they were sticking to that short stuff, and it wasn't working at all. But then again, on the other side of the spectrum, you could say it set up the big plays late. The Quez Watkins big play, and then Jalen Hurts didn't have a couple really good runs. They weren't huge runs, but they were wide open because of the lack of success earlier in the game.
As a matter of fact, Quez actually did play more snaps than Jalen Reagor. I'm pretty sure that's the first time that's the case this year.
It is. Yeah.
That he repped them 55 snaps to 47 snaps. So it's trending in that direction, as we all agree it should. You're right, John, in that I think, Nick Sirianni's going to get credit. He's the winning coach. He's the head coach. He's the main man. Offensive play calling at times I thought left a little bit to be desired. You just mentioned the overusage of the short passing game in the first half. And where that gets on my nerves a little bit is, again, very few runs. And I know the RPO kind of takes the run play out of it. He tried to give that half-hearted explanation of last week that, well, we consider an RPO where Jalen doesn't hand it off to be a run play. No, if he passed the ball, it's a pass play. So I get it. The RPO can swing the balance of how many runs and how many passes you have. Well, then don't call it. Just call a straight up running play. Get your quarterback up under center and have him hand the ball off to Miles Sanders. Is it just that that's not the Eagle identity, that they want to be an quote unquote RPO team? Why do you think that Sirianni hasn't come around to that just to make sure that he gets a percentage of running plays every game?
Yeah, well, a couple things. One, it's become a press box joke. Every time they run an RPO and they throw it, we say that's a run. Let's click that. But I hear what you're saying. There's two parts to this. One, they're an RPO team, and that's what they practice. So when Jalen Hurts is on the field, they're not going to run what they don't practice. That's the first part. And the second part is if Jalen Hurts got hurt and Joe Flacco had to play, they would change and they would become a more conventional offense. They're not going to play a conventional offense with Jalen Hurts. And by the way, I think that's the right way to go. I always go back to that. Jeff might remember this. I always go back to that Penn State, Ohio State game where I think it was a 4th and 4 or 4th and 5, and Trace McSorley was the quarterback, and James Franklin ran an RPO. And the Penn State fans went nuts. And it's amazing to me because all Penn State does is practice that offense. And the biggest spot, they run what they run. But they want them to turn into the Bill Walsh 49ers at the biggest spot of the game, and you don't practice that. Not only that week, but ever. So you are what you are is what I'm trying to say. So it's about executing what they run, and they didn't do that well at all.
All right,
but it's not going to change with Jalen Hurts as quarterback.
Let me follow up, John. You're right. They are what they are. They practice what they practice. Maybe if they had more than a 70-minute practice during the preseason, they could actually get the quarterback under center a little bit so that they could diversify. They expand what they are. I don't want them to go away from the RPO. I understand the strength of it, and Hurts can pull it down. He can take off, make big plays with the leg. I'm not saying dump the RPO. I'm just saying incorporate a little bit more. Are they that reduced the team that they can only do RPOs and they can never bring the quarterback under center?
Well, I don't think they want to. Number one, I hear what you're saying about the practice. We talked about it all the time. That's an organizational decision. That's out of Nick Sirianni's hands. But I will say this. If they did practice longer, in training camp, they'd be practicing the same stuff. They wouldn't be adding stuff. They would be practicing what they practice. In a lot of ways, this is a college-like offense, and that's what they run. And there's two ways to look at it. In the old days, you would pound the square peg in the round hole, and Jalen Hurts would probably be useless as a starting quarterback in this league with a veteran coach, a veteran old-school coach. So the positive part is you have a coach who's taking advantage of what the quarterback does well and playing that up and not having the ego to say, okay, we're going to run what I like to run. Because to be honest, Nick Sirianni would like to run, well, everybody would like to run what Kansas City runs or people like that, a more high-powered passing offense.
But, John, you kind of brought this up, too. You know, he's playing to the strengths of the quarterback. And one thing I've taken notice over these first 5 games is there's just – I mean, we talked about the middle of the field stuff before, but there's nothing like passes 10, 20 yards. Is he just trying to hide the fact that Hurts may not just have an NFL arm or an arm that we would like?
I think it's more the accuracy issue than arm strength. I think the arm strength is fine. It's not great. It's not top tier. It's not Josh Allen. But they are concerned about his accuracy. And when you throw the football in the middle of the field, and you're a little bit off, what happens? I mean, you have tip balls, and that's – so I do think they're trying to protect him from that standpoint a little bit. But but I do think it's more accuracy related than arm strength related.
John, let's give some credit to the defense. You mentioned Jonathan Gannon, and yeah, there was some critique / criticism of these last couple of weeks, deservedly so. You give up 40 points, you get run through like a hot knife through butter. Yeah, you're going to hear about it. Bounce back week for him and the defense for sure. And it did start up front. We know that Javon Hargrave has been great all year long. Fletcher Cox, much more involved. Another Josh Sweat sack. They just seem to get more pressure up front. He's not a blitz guy. People in Philadelphia love the blitz. That's not what he does, and he didn't do it again yesterday. And he got there and got some pressure on Sam Darnold throughout the game, specifically in the second half. Anything you saw that maybe they did differently, or did the guys just step up for Gannon yesterday on the front four?
I think they did a little bit differently, but I think it all relates to not the criticism, but the change in the opponent. So I bring up Davion Taylor, for instance. They were trying to get him on the field at the beginning of training camp, and he just hurt his calf, and so it pressed pause on that. So that's what that had to do. The second part would be Darius Slay, as Jeff mentioned, did travel a little bit more man-to-man coverage. Again, I think it's more opponent related because they didn't think Sam Darnold could take advantage of what somebody like Patrick Mahomes or Dak Prescott could take advantage of. And then they blitzed a little bit more. Obviously, they're never going to be Buddy Ryan, but they blitzed a little bit more. And again, that because they didn't think the quarterback could hurt them. Whereas they thought if they blitzed Patrick Mahomes, it would be instead of 12 plays at 80 yards, it would be one play at 80 yards. So I think it was all related to you feel you game plan for a specific team and you feel you can do more things against a quarterback who's not the best quarterback in the world.
John, through 5 games, I think Devonta Smith's been as good as advertised so far. And in fact, I actually came up with the stat last night. He's one of just 13 wide receivers in NFL history that have 25 catches for 300 yards in his first 5 career games. And I know some people scoffed at that because of like Eddie Royal and Billy Parks are on that list, but there's 7 Hall of Famers on that too. So what do you make of it?
He's a very good player. He's the best receiver the Eagles have had in a very long time. They finally got Justin Jefferson a year late. And they're so similar in that they're both great route runners for young receivers, which you rarely see. Now, obviously, Justin has a little more size, but Devontae has a little bit more explosiveness and, the separation he gets as such a young player. I think the only thing anybody should be concerned about with him as a player is the size issue, which I think is legitimate in the NFL. But if he's healthy and he's on the field, he's going to produce. And he's got that Alabama mindset because he fumbled the football, and a lot of young players would have dropped their head and done the woe is me act, and he doesn't believe that way. He was right out there, and I think he caught 7 of 8 targets. Was it, Jeff?
Yeah.
I mean, he's so much better than every other receiver the Eagles have, and it's bizarre because when they do have the passing game. I don't recall somebody this early, and I covered Randy Moss as a rookie. I don't recall somebody this early who is the imprint of an entire team's passing game. Like Randy came in with Chris Carter and Jake Reed. He was the 3rd receiver. Even Jefferson last year came in with Adam Thielen. He was the 2nd receiver. He didn't even start, I think, until week 4. Devontae is the guy the Eagles draw up the most plays for, which is pretty astonishing.
That's a very good point, John. A lot of pressure on him because of that. And, oh, by the way, he caught a touchdown pass yesterday that came off the board. This is getting to be old hand. Eagles score. Oh, no, wait, there's a flag on the field. And they continue to take touchdowns off the board, which didn't bite them in the rear end yesterday. And I don't know that it even bit them in the rear end in the previous games because they couldn't stop the opposition and they were well behind in all those games. But I digress. Greg Ward's my guy. How do you do what he did yesterday? After J.J. Arcega-Whiteside did it the week before, and you watched the film and you saw the call, how do you do it? How do you make contact with the defender? You know you can't do that. You know it's a pick play. They take points off the board. It costs them 4 points. Do we blame Ward? Do we blame the coaches? The wide receiver coach? Do we blame the offensive coordinator? Do we blame the head coach? I wanted to throw something at the TV when they took those 7 points off the board. How is this happening, John McMullen?
Yeah, I hope nobody was complaining about that because that was a penalty. That was
of course it was.
And it was a savvy play by the defender. I think he tried to create the contact. He was trying to create that because he knew what was going on. I think Nick mentioned that on his radio spot this morning. But they're gonna call that play all the time. It was interesting in the middle of the field. They ran a rub route, and Zach Ertz was the pick guy, and he ran it perfectly. And I think it was Gainwell who got a conversion. I'm like, Nick Sirianni should play that on a loop with these young receivers because, obviously Zach's a great route runner, but he did it absolutely perfectly. And the bottom line is you got to do it with subtlety. And I can't even explain that to the listeners, but it's sort of, it when you see it type of thing. Like they're calling what JJ did. They're calling what Greg Ward did. They look like blockers. They look like they're plowing into the pile. You just got to be savvy, and you just got to get in the way of the defender. And it's a natural pick play. And they're never going to call it. Every team in this league runs it. You see how successful it is. If the Eagles just would do it correctly, you have wide open receivers for touchdowns. It's just young receivers who don't have the savviness to do it right now. But Greg Ward is the oldest receiver, the most veteran receiver on this team. Now, he doesn't have a ton of experience. I don't know what to say other than he should know better and he should run that route better. But it was definitely a penalty, so nobody should be complaining about that.
John, Jalen Reagor, obviously, not his finest performance yesterday. The 2 kickoff returns, the one play, it looked like he just seemed disinterested in blocking. I'm trying to remember the play vividly, but I'm trying to remember.
It's a bubble screen. He looked like he wanted nothing to do with blocking anybody.
Yeah, what is it with him right now? Is it just the frustrations are boiling, or is it just like he's starting to figure out hey, maybe I don't got it, or what's the deal?
I don't know. Jalen's always been a guy who takes criticism to heart. You've seen it on social media, deletes his social media, brings it back. I think he pays too much attention to that rat poison, as Jalen Hurts would call it. So that's one thing. I don't think he's playing with a lot of confidence. I do think you see the hesitation on the kick returns. If I'm Michael Clay, I don't want Jalen Reagor or Quez Watkins back on kickoff returns. I'd let Boston Scott do it. At least at this point, you'd have a guy making the right decisions. I would say he's just not playing with confidence. And, when you see, obviously, the comparisons we just mentioned, Jefferson a couple times, those comparisons are going to be there always. And guess what? Jefferson's having another great year. So he's not a flash in the pan. And that, unfortunately for the Eagles, I don't think that comparison is going to work out well moving forward either. And it's always going to be something that maybe even derails Jalen Reagor's entire career in Philadelphia because I just don't see improvement at all. In fact, I see the opposite. And I just said Quez should be on the field. And they don't have depth. So, I don't want Greg Ward on the field. I know Jody will disagree with me. I don't want JJ on the field. So he's got to play and maybe plays himself out of it. But he shouldn't be playing more than Quez.
All right. Yes, I absolutely would like to see more Greg Ward than Jalen Reagor. If that makes me a dope, okay, fine. I've seen enough of Jalen Reagor. I know he's a first-round draft pick of only a year ago. He doesn't make plays, and he makes bonehead mistakes, too. And I know Greg Ward made one yesterday, so this might not be the day to make that argument, but I still stand by my decision that Ward could get a couple extra snaps and Reagor gets less snaps. We all agree we want Watkins get more snaps. All right, do want to ask you about this, John. After Sam Darnold throws his third interception of the day, Steven Nelson, nice play. Thank you very much. After Darius's two earlier ones, Eagles have to run out the clock, and they've got Miles Sanders in there. And he made a couple of nice runs, made some nice yards, and went out of bounds twice. And they surely noted it on the broadcast. And shame on Miles. He should know better, and he should be reprimanded. Oh, by the way, he got pulled, and they put Gainwell in after he went out of bounds the second time in the last 2 minutes of the game. But also shame on Sirianni. Why is he calling wide running plays? Now, I know that you're trying to get extra yards, and they're going to be certainly everybody crushing into the middle, but you can't run out of bounds if you run between the tackles. And he scheduled 2 plays to run wide. I guess he had faith that Miles Sanders would be bright enough to go down in bounds just before he got knocked out of bounds. But why is the coach even risking that? Why is he running wide there at the end of the game when you're trying to kill the clock?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. He was trying to get, and obviously was effective. The runs were actually effective. But yeah, Miles, and by the way, Nick mentioned that at his press conference. And remember, the mood of that press conference, and every player that came in was jubilant with the comeback win. And Nick still mentioned you can't do that late in the game. You got to get down. You got to let the clock run, or you got to force Carolina to burn their timeouts. So he made note of the mental mistakes of Miles Sanders. And, maybe it's a little bit of the same thing with Jalen Reagor, a little bit of frustration, not getting the football, not being effective when he gets the football. Finally got some runs, but that's always been one of the things with Miles. He kicks it outside too much. We talk all the time. When they do run inside, he tries to hit the home run too much. And that's one of the reasons that, people have started to speculate, well, Kenny Gainwell is playing a little bit better, being more effective. I don't think they're at that point. I think they still think Kenny Gainwell is the Nyheim Hines type or the Austin Eckler type. If you go to Nick Sirianni's history, that's what they want him to be. I still think they want Miles Sanders to be the number one running back. But if he keeps making mistakes like that, if he keeps not following, his blockers, there's going to be an issue at some point. You saw it, sort of the first manifestation about that by Nick calling him out with the mental errors.
John, I was a little concerned yesterday. We all know Nick Sirianni puts his numbers on his visor, and 65 happened to be on there, and the other 2 are out for the season.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything with Lane Johnson?
Yeah, we said the same thing. He only puts on numbers of guys who are out for the season. So I know what you're saying. The Eagles have been very close-lipped about this situation, other than to say it's a very personal matter. It doesn't have anything to do with his health or anything of that nature. People have speculated he was frustrated because that ankle keeps swelling up. So I don't believe it's a health issue. It is a personal issue. And the fact that he was on the visor, yes, I don't think that's a good sign.
All right, John, last thing, we know you got to get on a plane. And I give you credit for this, and I apologize, too, for ending on a not upbeat note, because the Eagles won yesterday. Yeah, go Birds. The alignment on the offensive line, since we brought up Lane Johnson, you had said on Friday you thought if Johnson can't go and Mailata's back, they'd put Mailata over on the right-hand side and keep Dillard in, and Herbig would be the odd man out coming out. I didn't necessarily like that. I didn't necessarily agree with that. I think Mailata, if he's going to be your left tackle going forward for that many more years, I would have just kept Driscoll outside, kept Herbig in the lineup. Mailata did not have a good game yesterday. A couple foolish penalties. They didn't run anything to the right-hand side as far as I was concerned. I don't know that the offensive line is going to grade out all that well. If Lane Johnson's out again next week, line stays as it was aligned this week, or do you think they reevaluate?
No, I think it stays this week. And last week when I said that, I knew that's the way they were going. Just a little inside baseball. We weren't allowed to report it, so we can only speculate the silliness. But I knew they were going to play Mailata at right tackle, just Driscoll at right guard. They want their best 5 players out there.
Now, let me just jump in there, John. You knew that. Hold on. Let me, Johnny, let me just so the viewers know. You knew that because you saw it in practice, but you weren't supposed to say, or you knew that because someone told you that, but said, I can't have you broadcast this before the game on Sunday.
No, I knew it because I saw it in practice, and the Eagles believe it was a competitive advantage, and there are other teams who shut down practice if you report lineup things and scheme things. So, I don't want to get 40 reporters banned. Gotcha. So if you're that type of thing, that's why you can't do it. But that's a little bit of inside baseball. The thought process is obviously Andre can't play right tackle. Or can't play it well. And if you think it went bad for Jordan Mailata, probably would have been worse with Andre Dillard, who's a natural left tackle. We saw what happened when he tried to move there as a rookie on the right side. And the bottom line, it comes down to they think Andre's a better player at left tackle than Nate Herbig is at right guard. That's your real decision. Sure. The interesting thing to me is they don't worry about Jordan. They're like, Jordan will go play right tackle. He doesn't care. And he doesn't care. He did have a bit of a trouble when you saw the consecutive sacks by Hassan Reddick. He had a little bit of trouble with the hard count, and the second one he didn't even get out of his stance. So the silent count, I'm sorry, not the hard count. He had trouble with that, and hopefully that won't be an issue this week, obviously, with Tampa Bay coming in Thursday at Lincoln Financial Field. So I think he'll get better and better. And he's a better right tackle than Dillard. Dillard's a competent left tackle at this point. I think he's played okay. Not great, but he's played okay. And with all the injuries and all the issues they have, I do think that's the best path forward for this particular team.
J-Mac, we appreciate you hopping on board. Feel free to get on your flight now. Row 32 is boarding. Have a nice flight. We'll get you back up here tomorrow morning. Thanks, JM.
All right, thanks, guys.
That is John McMullen, usual co-host of Birds 365. He is flying back from Carolina, a victorious flight home after an Eagle win. Jeff Kerr and I will come back and talk more about it. Hour number 2, we'll punch up a guest for you. Our buddy, your buddy, Paul Domowitch, longtime Eagle beat writer now, enjoying the game from the comforts of his couch. He still loves the game. He can still analyze the game. He'll do it with us in hour number 2. JK and I will kick back a couple more things right here on Birds 365.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that. Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
It is Birds 365, a victorious Monday. We've had a bunch of Mondays since we started this show 6 months ago, but not victorious ones. We've only had one other one. That was against the Falcons, week number 1. We got number 2 today because of the Eagles' win in Carolina against the Panthers to get to 2 and 3. And we touched on this in the first segment, Jeff, and it's worth bringing back. The Eagles' playoff hopes are still alive. And I did say that leading into this game. Now, truth be told, I picked the Carolina Panthers to win. A close game, could go either way. I thought the difference was going to be Christian McCaffrey because I watched the Eagles get sliced and diced by the run 2 weeks running, and I thought Christian McCaffrey could do a lot of the same. When McCaffrey came out, all right, well, maybe the Eagles can win this game, which they did. More power to them. But as I said last week here on the show, this is a pretty big game in the Eagles season. I know it's only week 5 of a 17-game season, but when you're sitting at 1 and 3, one of your losses is to San Francisco, who may be a team you would compete against in a wild card fight, with the Arizona being up top of that division. Oh, by the way, yes, San Francisco loses again yesterday. They're now 2 and 3 with one of their only wins against the Eagles, 2 wins. If you lose to Carolina, who would have gone to 4 and 1 themselves, and you've got those 2 tiebreaker losses. Oh, by the way, the Cowboys keep winning in the division. They're now 4 and 1, and you're behind them because they beat you by an extra half game because they beat you head to head. Yeah, you're screwed. Your playoff chances, even though it's week 5 of 17, have become severely compromised. But if you win 2 and 3, Dallas doesn't pick up any ground on you. You beat a team that if you finish in a wild card tie with, you would actually win the tiebreaker. They basically had to have yesterday's game if they wanted to stay in the mix. They got it, and I think that it should keep Eagle fans buoyed for at least another week.
Yeah, Jody, and one of the things I said right after the win, well, if you told me the Eagles were going to be 2 and 3 going into this Tampa Bay game based on how their schedule started, I would take it. And they're 2 and 3. And the worst they can go is 2 and 4 in this 6-game gauntlet of a schedule. And I'm like, okay, that's not terrible. And, you know, they have a chance to go 3 and 3 now. I don't think that's going to happen. But again, it's Monday. I still have a couple days to make a pick here. But you look at Vegas. They do not look like the same team that won the first 3 games of the year. And Derek Carr is banged up. Detroit is playing a lot better than an 0-5 football team. You have to watch out for them. But they're an 0-5 football team for a reason. They just keep making mistakes, and it's just crucial errors there. You got Chicago again. I don't think they're as good as advertised, even though they're 3 and 2. The Chargers are really good. That's gonna be. But you look at the back half of this schedule. It's the Jets, the Giants twice, Washington twice. It's if you just stay around 500 and stay in it, why not? It keeps me interested. It keeps you interested. It's, I swear the Eagles decided to go against my Twitter yesterday because I joked that this is bad, like 1998 Eagles bad. And what does Jalen Hurts do like 3 plays later? Throw a play to Quez Watkins and then everything. I'm like, okay, well, at least the 98 Eagles, they started 0-5. This team is 2-3, and they're in it. I mean, again, and Tom Brady pointed this out yesterday. He was very specific about this. We were better than the Bears team that beat us last year on Thursday Night Football. It was a short week. So the Bucs aren't going to take this team lightly, which kind of scares me a bit.
Jeffrey Lurie told us way back when, and I know it was only however many months ago, 8, 9 months, but it seems like a lifetime, when they decided to move away from Doug Peterson, that this was going to be a transitional year for the Eagles. That was one of the reasons they gave for Doug Peterson's ouster, was that he wasn't as in tune with the rest of the organization as the fact that it needed to be a transitional year. He wanted to go right back out and win again this year. Shocking. Why would a coach feel that way? Let's try and win as many games as possible. But that was one of the reasons given for Doug no longer being head coach. And you had to take Jeff Lurie at his word that they really thought that this team needed a specific guidance during the offseason. They could have been right or wrong, but you believe that Lurie believed it, and that was the most important thing. Well, Eagle fans don't want to hear that. They never do. Any fan of basically any team, I should say 90%. Every once in a while, you're so freaking bad, you go, all right, we got to rebuild this thing. We stink. We got to take it down and build it back up again. I don't believe Eagle fans believe that about this year's team going in. Certainly not as much as Jeff Lurie did. So the question was transition or competition. Which one was it going to be? Had they lost yesterday to the Carolina Panthers, I would have bought in 100% the transition. I would have said, I need to see Davion Taylor like 85% of the snaps in there at linebacker. Why are we playing certain guys when we know they're not long-term contributors for the Eagles? Everything should have been about building forward with this team. They didn't. They won. So now they're 2-3. They've got the Giants in their rearview mirror. They're tied with Washington in the division. They're only looking up at the Cowboys, and they got them again later. So the half a game they're behind, you can always make up. You just got to win that game. That game, of course, being week 18 of a 17-game season. We don't even know what the standing is going to look like at that time. But if you know that you're going to get a shot to get that win back against the Cowboys, you can know on that and you can build on that. I thought yesterday was huge for them. And the way that Nick Sirianni described it, a team win was something they also needed, because in the given games for the first 4 games, one side of the ball was usually better than the other. Yesterday was a nice balanced effort. I'd say the defense was better than the offense, but the offense made the plays that they needed to when the defense gave them the chance in the second half. The Eagles needed a team win, and they got a team win.
Yeah, exactly, Jody. And look, we'd be having a much different conversation today if they lost that game, because I agree with you. 1-4, we'd be saying, all right, why isn't Davion Taylor playing? Why is Greg Ward on the football field? Well, I mean, we can still ask that, but, why is Jalen Reagor on the
I'm going to get on your case the same way I got a McMullen. You need more Jalen Reagor?
No, I don't want Jalen Reagor. That was the point.
Well, then you need more J-Jaw?
No, we don't need him. Well, they don't have anybody.
Somebody's got to play wide receiver. We know there's Devontae. We know there's Quez. They use a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. Who's that third wide receiver? You don't like Walker? Who do you want?
I don't like any of them outside Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins. How's that?
What's that?
I don't like any of them outside Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins. They need help there. They need help bad at wide receiver. But
the roster is what it is right now. We're not talking about 2022, Jeff. We're talking about the roster right now. They have 5 wide receivers. They're going to play 3, a goodly amount of it. They got both of their tight ends on the field. They got more than their fair share of 12. And they're not going to play 12 every single down, but they're going to play it enough that the third of that group is going to be lesser. But I'd just as soon have it Greg Ward as I would Jalen Reagor. Come on.
I just feel bad for him that he's the veteran wide receiver on this team. This should not be the case for him. I mean, really, Greg Ward should be a solid number 4 for your football team. And they're trying to make him something that I personally don't think he is. Just the leader, the veteran leader of this wide receiver group. And he's not that. But I still feel like he can be a part of this football team. It's just, I don't know. I did not like him in on that touchdown play. And again, if you have to pick between him and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, you're between a rock and a hard place right now. So I guess Nick Sirianni went to, hey, let's try this guy out. Well, he made the same mistake the other guy did. Well, what am I supposed to do? Do I bring up Keyshawn Johnson from the practice squad? I mean, I don't know. And again, back to my initial point here, if they're 1-4, you and I are definitely looking at this as, okay, we're going on tankathon and we got to see what the Dolphins. By the way, the Dolphins losing is awesome. And Howie Roseman is completely fleecing them right now because they look in the midst of a 4-win football team the way things are going in Miami. I know they play Tampa, but their defense is bad. Their offense is even worse. That's looking really good right now. And, it's funny, Jody, because, if they lose, you're saying, okay, they're going to be 1-5. Well, when are they ever going to win a game? Can they beat Vegas? Well, I don't know. And, now I'm starting to think they can beat Vegas and they can beat Detroit and they can, after 8 games, they can potentially be 4-4 and still be competitive. And look, when you got these extra draft picks, thanks to the Dolphins and the Colts, you can compete a little bit here. And all of a sudden, things don't look so bleak with this organization. I know people want to write off Jalen Hurts after 9 starts, but, we were talking earlier before the show. If he's not a top 10 quarterback, but he's not terrible, I think you could still win with that because you can build stuff around him. That's what I want out of this football team right now.
I want to get to Jalen Hurts in a second, but I do want to ask you one more question before we turn our attention to the quarterback and response that we got to a guest we had on Birds 365 last week. You mentioned the Lions, who the Eagles have coming up in a couple of weeks. And you said, yeah, they're playing hard. Yeah, they're 0-5, but you're not the only one who thought that way. I was doing my show yesterday on CBS Sports Radio. I do the last 2 hours of Eye on Football with Zach Gelb. And Gelb said something very similar to, yeah, the Lions hang tough and they just find ways to lose. The key to me in that sentence is find ways to lose. They're 0-5. They couldn't keep the Vikings from getting into scoring position with 33 seconds left yesterday. Adam Thielen made 2 catches, of one over 20 yards, one just under 19 yards in the last 3 plays from scrimmage of that game. That's terrible. That's just awful. I don't care whether Dan Campbell cried after the game or not. That's that they just find there's something to be said for finding ways to lose. They do it on a weekly basis. I don't see any moral victories here for the Lions. Zach did yesterday. It sounded to me like you did. Why are we giving the Lions credit for being 0-5?
I think from a national perspective, and look, I had to hear this every single week this offseason between 2 teams, the Lions and the Texans, how bad they're going to be. Well, let me tell you something. The Lions played the Texans. I think the Lions beat them by 20. I really do. And that's with Davis Mills playing well yesterday against them. I don't think New England's any good at all. Like, I thought that game was going to be a lot closer than a lot of people indicated going into that game. And, I'll pat my own back here. I was right. But overall, I just think this Lions team, look, I am a guy, I could go play for Dan Campbell. I really would like to play for a guy like that. He did not blame his defense for losing that game. You can tell that guy just takes all the blame. He's authentic. He's genuine. He could have said, exactly what you said. Well, that's bad by our defense and let that go. Pull the Urban Meyer stuff, what he did with Trevor Lawrence. Well, Trevor wasn't ready to take the quarterback sneak. Well, no, Dan Campbell said, we played our butts off yesterday. And look, I know we're not good, but I look at it this way with the Detroit Lions. They needed a 66-yard field goal and a 54-yard field goal to beat them. That has never been done in NFL history. A team through 5 games of the season, by the way, NBC, thanks for stealing my stat on that. That they had 50-yard walk-off field goals with no time left on the clock and lost. So they could easily sit here and be 2-3 right now, like the Eagles. They could be optimistic, but that's football. Unfortunately, look, I look at it with Detroit like this. I don't think they're a good football. They have so many issues. They have so many problems. They have no receivers. They have no pass rush. They have nobody in the secondary. Every pick they seems to be a bust, and yet they're still hanging in there. What's this guy going to do if this front office actually gets him some talent?
Okay. That's one way to look at it. Here's my way to look at it. Next week, they got Cincinnati. If Joe Burrow plays, they lose. The week after that, they're at the Rams. They lose.
Yeah, they lose.
Well, the week after that, they got the Eagles. Eagles are ticking up. I'm a little excited about the Eagles. They lose. The week after that, they're at Pittsburgh. They lose. The week after that, they're at Cleveland. They lose. The week after that, they're at Chicago. They're home Chicago. And I think by that point, okay, you and I will get a wager on that game because by that point, they will have taken the training wheels off Justin Fields, which they had on yesterday. Everything was short. They handed the ball off plenty. By that point, he'll have established himself as a quarterback in this league. All he does is win 2 straight games. He's got 2 straight wins. Oh, he'll get another win against the Lions. Mark it down. Then they've got a rematch with Minnesota in their house. Ooh, if they were so close to winning that, yeah, they're going to lose that game. At Denver, they're going to lose that game. Arizona may still be undefeated. They're going to lose that game. At Atlanta, December 26th, there's your Christmas present. That might be the first Lions win. I think they're looking at like 0-11 or 0-12, but that Dan Campbell, he keeps them fighting. He keeps them playing hard. 0-5 is 0-5. Stop it.
I'm just looking at it from a national perspective here. I'm just saying I was told how bad they're, and they are going to be bad. But
how much worse can you be than 0-5?
0-5
and you get blown out, or 0-5 you lose close. 0-5 is 0-5 at the end of the year.
I agree, but didn't we expect this though? Like I didn't expect them to actually have 2 wins taken away from them.
If you'd laid it out like that, I would be okay with it. Well, they were expected to be pretty bad, and guess what they are? They're 0-5. Not, they're 0-5, but damn, they hang in there. Damn, they're close. That coach has got them playing. No, that coach has got them playing stupid at the end of the game. They let Adam Thielen get 40 yards and catches on two passes with less than 30 seconds to go in the game. That's just bad defense. It's nice he stuck up for his players. I'm sure all his players like him. I'm not one of his players. I can look and go, what are you talking about? You lost. You had the game, you lost. All right. We're off on a Lion tangent. I apologize for that. All right, let's get back to
365 now.
It's just you're the second one that went there while I was doing a show with them that I just didn't understand. Why? Ooh, the Lions are so close. No, they're not. They're 0-5. Back to the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. JK, we had Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network on last week, and Mike's always good whenever he comes on. He's a Philly guy through and through, even though he's a national reporter these days. He wears Philly on his sleeve, and that's why we like having Mike on. But he gave an opinion on Jalen Hurts that I did not think was too far off. But we got more response first on the stream here on Birds 365 and then on Twitter thereafter. Just ripping Mike Garafolo, which I didn't quite understand. His point was, and again, I'm paraphrasing and I'm shrinking down a longer comment that he made. His point was, right now with Jalen Hurts, you're in probably the worst position possible. That if you were an Eagle fan, Eagle general manager, Eagle owner, what you'd be rooting for is he'd be a top 5 quarterback in the league. That you decided to trade Carson Wentz. So you turn the job to him, and he would be a star and just blossoming before our very eyes. He hasn't been. Or you would hope that he would be playing like Carson Wentz did last year. Awful, bad, no questions asked. This guy's not an NFL quarterback. He's not. He's playing better than that. He is where he is, which is in the middle. And that's probably not what you wanted coming into the season. You wanted to either have him establish himself as a star or give you the chance to realize, all right, we need to be better than this. This guy's not good enough. He's in the middle. I gave you I looked up the stats this morning. Let me give them to you. Quarterback rating. All the quarterbacks in the league. Jalen's at 93.3. That ranks 18th. Out of 32, 34 quarterbacks. There's a couple teams that have 2 quarterbacks who have played, so it's quite like 34 guys. He's 18th. What is that? Yeah, dead in the middle. 7 touchdown passes so far this year in 5 games. Believe it or not, I thought they'd actually be lower. He's 16th, dead in the middle, right in the middle, tied at 16th with 7 touchdowns. His completion percentage is 64.8. That would be 19th, again, in the middle. Yards would be 1,365. He's actually a little higher at 11th. But here's the one thing about the yards, and tell me if this is fair or not. He's gotten a couple garbage time yards. And when I say garbage time, I mean Cowboys had a big lead. The other team's playing prevent defense. They're going to let you throw stuff underneath. He got an, oh, by the way, touchdown against the Cowboys. Last week against Kansas City. Kansas City's got a big lead in the fourth quarter. Prevent defense. Their defense isn't all that good to begin with. And when they're in prevent, you absolutely can throw the ball against them. Another, oh, by the way, touchdown and a whole bunch of yards late in that game. They count. They're part of the 1,300 and change I said. But if you put them in a context of how did he get them, yeah, not as impressive. Now, the big play to Watkins yesterday, they had to come from behind and win. You get bonus points for that, but you also need to put those other yards in perspective. He's 11th. He's middle of the street. That's what he is. And that's what Mike Garafolo said. And the people got so worked up about, who is this guy? What is he not? Was he a little more pessimistic than I am? I'm more glass half full than glass half empty. But let's be honest, the glass isn't filled to the brim. If he was, then Jalen Hurts would be a top 5, top 4, top 3 quarterback. What is it that Eagle fans get defensive of their guys? If anyone questions their guys even a little bit, they get their nose all bent out of shape. Why do you think that is?
Oh, because, we're the root of all evil and we all know what we're talking about. At least from the national perspective. That's what I always hear all the time. Oh, you don't watch this. I'm like, well, this is where I agree and disagree with Mike. He is right. Jalen Hurts is in the middle right now, and that's not a bad thing. He's not. I think people took that way too personally and seriously because I don't think they want to admit that Jalen Hurts is probably never going to be Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert. He's just not. Now I'm going to look at it from this perspective. Who's to say he can't get better? Like, whatever happened to letting these guys develop? You know why the Buffalo Bills are the Buffalo Bills right now? Because they actually didn't give up on Josh Allen. They used the first-round pick on him. They developed him. Brian Dable and all those guys in Buffalo decided, you know what? This is our guy. We think he has potential. Forget the 55% completion percentage. And look what he is now. He probably is one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in football through 5 games this season. And he's been like this now. This isn't a one-year thing. He's been better than he was last year. He can move his arm. He can move with his legs. Look at Lamar Jackson. Same thing. All I ever hear on Twitter is, he's a running back. He can't win a playoff game. He can't do this, can't do that. Well, guess what? He does it. Oh, and by the way, Lamar Jackson is really, really good. Why can't Jalen Hurts be Josh? Why do we have to judge him after 9 games? And look, I get what Mike's saying, but can we calm down with the hot takes on this guy? Like, on all these guys. Can we let this guy play and get better? Is it the worst thing in the world that Jalen Hurts is going to be your quarterback in 2022? No, it's not. Is this Eagles team going to win the Super Bowl in the next 2 years? No, but I'll tell you what, they're going to be a lot better if Jalen Hurts gets better. His completion percentage is already up. His yards per attempt is already up. I think Nick Sirianni does a pretty decent job at actually playing to his strengths. Who's to say his arm shape can't get better? Who's to say him throwing across the middle can't get better? I talked to Jalen Hurts Friday. We were talking exactly about this. He goes, and, I wish I could, be judged, not putting words in his mouth, but, we were joking about it a little bit. Hey, do you go on social media and, we were talking about the rat poison stuff. He goes, rat poison is, he said, it's not some Nick Saban taught you. He said, I went to Alabama, obviously. Some people listen to that stuff. Some people listen to Coach Saban and some people don't. And I feel I was one of the people who listened to him. So Jalen Hurts is a smart guy. I think he's going to figure it out. I think he's going to get better. But can we just hold off on the Jalen Hurts can't do this when I literally present facts to you and you want to contest them because you have some agenda going on? Fine. But I'm just putting the stats out right now. There's only 4 quarterbacks in NFL history that have more yards through 9 starts than Jalen Hurts. Why don't we go on what he's done now and what he potentially can be instead of just saying he's done. We need Malik Wills. We need Carson Strong. We need Spencer Rattler. Oh, by the way, it was benched Saturday. We need these college quarterbacks who really we don't know anything about.
Well, here I was agreeing with you in a second, but what you said there at the end, you just completely blew away the point that I made about the, oh, by the way, yards. Oh, he's got more yards than, well, but he got a bunch of those yards in garbage time when the other defense was saying, here, please throw the ball against us. As long as you keep it in bounds and run the clock, and we're going to end up winning the game by 2 scores. Go ahead, take as much yard. So there are numbers, there are stats. You can crunch them. You can move them any way you want.
I'm going to start a website,
and let us add
stats.
the running stats that Jalen Hurts is putting up, because you're right. Your comparison to Lamar Jackson is dead on. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and Jalen does it with his legs as much as he does it with his arms, and that absolutely counts in the conversation. Here's where you and I are the same, and this is where I think everybody got ticked off at Garoppolo. He kind of took a hot take and a stance and said, I don't believe Jalen Hurts is going to be a winning quarterback in this league. Good for Mike. He wants to make a decision as quickly as he does. I think that would be ill-advised and foolish, but he took the stance. Here's my stance. And there are some like the stuff in comparison to historical quarterbacks and the like. No, Jalen Hurts has not been that good. I don't care what the numbers say. I don't care. There are certain stats that may point to that, but there are reasons he's been able to achieve those stats. Here's my point, and I made it last week, and after this week's performance, which again, 2 touchdown runs, outstanding, less than 200 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, It was an okay game for Jalen Hurts. That's all it was. It wasn't a bad game because he ran for 2 touchdowns. Wasn't a great game because he didn't throw for any, and he was kind of lucky to get 200 yards. We're still in the evaluative process. Why do we have to make a stance right now? Why do we have to say, Jalen is the man? What do you mean draft a quarterback? We got our guy. I don't know that. What do you mean Jalen Hurts can't play? He's never going to win. He's never going to be a franchise quarterback. Never going to be a elite quarterback. I don't know that. He's played 5 games this year. I don't count the ones last year near as much as this year because it's his team now. He's the quarterback. Last year he was just filling a void for Carson Wentz. So these 5 games means much more to me than any of the 3 played last year. 5 games. You've got a season of 17. Why do you have to take a definitive stance after just 5? It's not even a third of the way through the season. Can we let this play out a little bit? Can we let him play out a little bit before we make the call? That's all I'm saying. But yeah, everybody needs to have an opinion immediately. See, 20 minutes of game, and I can tell you exactly what's going to happen for the next 5 years with this person. Well, then you're a better evaluator than me because I can't tell. Sometimes it's blatant. Sometimes it jumps up and you can see it immediately. God, this kid is great. Or God, this kid sucks. Jalen Hurts hasn't done either of those 2 things yet. You can't say that about him either way, but everybody has got to do that. And that's why I think everybody got so annoyed at Garoppolo last week because he came out and said, my opinion is, yeah, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be good enough. I'm not there yet, but I'm also not anointing him as the Eagle quarterback for the next decade.
He's no Bobby Hoying. Let's say that, Jody. He's no Bobby.
There you go. Oh, that damn! You and I weren't working together at the same time. What were you in grade school when Bobby Hoying?
I was probably in 2nd or 3rd grade when Bobby Hoying was lighting up the Cincinnati Bengals.
I remember that game. Him and Boomer going up and down the field. That was great. But yeah, the Eagle fans they wanted to build a statue down at the vet for Bobby Hoying, as a matter of fact. And I tried to tell everybody on WIP. You realize he was surrounded by a whole bunch of 1st-round draft picks at Ohio State, right? That his running back, he won the Heisman. His left tackle, #1 overall pick. His tight end was a 1st-round pick. 2 wide receivers, both of them 1st-round pick. Let's wait a little bit before we find out, did Bobby Hoying make those guys or did those guys make Bobby Hoying? Yeah, we found out those guys make Bobby Hoying, but good point by you. I'm annoyed at Eagle fans. I'm annoyed at the guys like Mike Garafolo. And I think Mike, his point was generally correct that the Eagles haven't been able to make a determination. They want to make a determination. Jalen Hurts is the guy or Jalen Hurts is not the guy. But you got to let it play itself out. You got to wait the entire season. You can't make the call after 5 games.
Hey, can you imagine if, team, again, like Buffalo, can you imagine if they wrote off Josh Allen after 2 seasons and just said, nah.
2 seasons, 5 games.
Go
back. Jeff Kerr, during the break, go back and do this for me. Look up Josh Allen's first 5 games and see what he did his first 5 games.
Yeah. And, I was one of those people who actually went on Twitter and said, I actually think Josh Allen's pretty good. And this is when he wasn't. And I heard guys, all the geniuses who watch film all the time, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, we'll see. I'm like, let's give him time. Let's see what happens. Last year was like my Josh Allen party. I'm like, oh yeah, Josh. And then I had to hear the haters again in the AFC Championship game. I'm like, is this what we're coming to right now? Like, he just took the Bills in the AFC Championship game. Probably, if it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers, he would have won MVP last year. So, and two of my favorite quarterbacks squared off last night: Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. It was fun.
Allen got the better of them. All right, quickie timeout. Come back. Jeff and I will continue talking birds, and we'll get Paul Domowitch up in hour number 2 to give us that much more Eagle insight here on Birds 365.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
A victorious Monday, Birds 365. The Eagles were winning. With Carolina beat a 3-1 Panther team. Yeah, they didn't look all that 3-1 to me. And without Christian McCaffrey, they were a little compromised. Everybody in the NFL has injuries. But when the best player on the team is out, yeah, that's a little debilitating. But you take the wins any way you can get them, right, Eagle fans? And Eagles certainly got a much-needed one to get to 2 and 3. Jeff Kerr in for Johnny Mack by my side here today. And Paul Domowitch, former Eagle beat guy for the Daily News Inquirer, is going to jump aboard in less than 10 minutes from now. We're talking about Jalen Hurts right before the break. I want to get a read out of you, Jeff Kerr. Yesterday, Jalen Hurts ran it 9 times for 30 yards, 2 of which he found the end zone, which huge. The 2 Eagle touchdowns were both scored by Jalen Hurts. One of them should have been scored by Devonta Smith, but Greg Ward took a bad penalty, which took it off the board. But Jalen Hurts did run it in twice, and 9 carries yesterday. He was the Eagles' second leading rusher, both in carries and in yards. Miles Sanders, 11 for 45. A couple of those good yards late, but foolishly got pushed out of bounds. But we'll move off that. In watching the game, there were several plays yesterday for me that they go RPO. Jalen Hurts rolls out of the pocket, threw the ball downfield. Couple he completed, couple he didn't. I just saw open space in front of him, and I wanted him to take off, even more so than he did. He did 9 times yesterday. I think it should have been more like 12, 13, 14 runs. That's just my read on the play. But I understand what Jalen's doing. He wants to make plays downfield. He doesn't want to become the running quarterback. He knows to achieve the status that we've been talking about here, elite quarterback, unquestioned. He's the guy going forward. He's got to do both. He can't just be like Lamar Jackson. Did you think he ran it enough yesterday, or did you get the same feeling watching the game that I did? Go, Jalen, go! And he didn't. He decided to throw the ball.
So whenever I watch football games, and I watch a ton of NFL games, especially when I don't know like the play as it's happening, I'm the run guy. I'm the guy saying, run, run. Lamar Jackson all the time. I'm yelling, run. I don't care what people think. Like, 10 yards is 10 yards. If you have an opportunity to get 10 yards, you take 10 yards. And everybody's like getting on Jalen Hurts or, before the Jake Elliott field goal because Quez Watkins was wide open. I'm the guy who's yelling 5 plays before. Why didn't he take off on this one play instead of throwing an incomplete pass? And again, I always thought this was Donovan McNabb's biggest problem when he was in Philadelphia. Too many people got into his head. He needed to be a pocket quarterback. And nowadays we're seeing guys that just don't care, like Josh Allen. He don't care if he runs. Lamar Jackson, he don't care if he runs. Kyler Murray really don't care if he runs. Russell Wilson don't care if he runs. And I know it increases the risk of getting hurt. Jalen Hurts is a big dude. Like, if he gets hurt, it's going to be off a late cheap shot, honestly. And I get they want to protect themselves. I get they want to improve throwing the football. But I'm with you, Jody. When there are lanes there, you got to take them. You got to keep this defense honest because all of a sudden, you got guys like Brian Burns, Hassan Reddick, Jeremy Chin saying, hold on a second. Then you can use your arm and beat them and find wide open wide receivers. Look, I see Lamar Jackson do it every single week. You know why Lamar's a better passer? Because you have to worry about him running the football.
By the way, Josh Allen, you mentioned him, 11 runs last night, 59 yards, and a big touchdown early in the game. That's pretty damn impressive. And, oh, by the way, when he throws it downfield, he's got more options than the quarterback has here in Philadelphia, more big play options. Shoot, even Mahomes ran it 8 times last night for 61 yards. So you got to be able to make plays with your legs, and the Eagles have one of those quarterbacks. That's a major thumbs up, at least in my book, for Jalen Hurts. And the other thing I want to give Jalen some credit for, and week 1, he didn't do this, and I don't know if it just it got in his head and he made a quick correction and it's done it ever since. A lot of the RPOs, he's sprinting out wide. When he doesn't take off, he's holding the ball. He's still moving out. He gets to the sidelines. He realizes, well, I'm not going to be able to get positive yards at it. He just throws the ball out of bounds. And trying to force feed it or trying to turn it up and taking a hit, both options not acceptable in my book. If you're going to try and throw it into a receiver that's not open and you end up getting picked, really bad play. You try and get 2 yards rather than no yards. You're just a dumb play. Yeah, you throw it out of bounds. It's going to look bad on your stats at the end of the game. So what? You take that hit rather than take an in-game hit that's going to end up costing your team. He did it at least twice yesterday. Maybe it was 3 times. Some good coverage by Carolina. Give Carolina credit that they may deserve on defense. But Hurts, I think, has improved his smartness on what he does when he gets out of the pocket. He's not making mistakes. And yesterday, even though it gets you nowhere, now it's 3rd and long. That's the play he's got to make. And I think Jalen Hurts is getting much better at that.
Yeah, and I thought, how can I word this? His situational football was really good yesterday. The 2-point conversion, for example. You got nothing to lose throwing that pass, what he did. And, everybody's like, why did he throw that? Well, it's a 2-point conversion. Who cares if it gets picked off? Well, the best thing happened. Devonta Smith caught it. So the Eagles got 2 points they badly needed. And I don't know if you saw the replay, Joey, but Jalen Hurts just kind of wings it or whatever. Yeah. Whatever he tries to do there. He's like, yeah, it is. He threw it. I think if that's 1st and goal, he doesn't do that. He probably just tried to get rid of the football on beforehand. But, it's a 2-point conversion. Carolina could take it back. It was very unlikely that was going to happen. But his situational football, in my opinion, has improved a lot. And that was the one thing that really frustrated me with Carson Wentz the last 2 years. His situational football, and he's doing it with the Colts too. It's just terrible. I don't think some quarterbacks understand the intricacies of the game. Like, I think that's what separates the Patrick Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes has had problems with this too, but the Josh Allens, the Justin Herberts, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, and Jalen Hurts seems to have grasped that concept of football. Like, he knows that there's another play. He's not all or nothing. And I got to give him credit for that. And I think that's one thing this Eagles brass really likes with this quarterback. He's not beating himself. Even on his pick yesterday, it wasn't like it was a great throw, probably a throw he shouldn't have made. But let's be real here. Donta Jackson, not a lot of defensive backs make the play he made.
It was a bad throw. I'm not going to
tell
the quarterback and slack. He overthrew the guy by about 5 yards. Yeah, it might not have been a pick, but had no chance to be complete whatsoever. And you're right about his football awareness. It is good. You have to know what you are capable of doing, and that means both from your own individual standpoint and your teammate's standpoint. That's why Mahomes gets himself in trouble, because I think his football awareness is phenomenal. He thinks he can't make a bad play because he is so good that there is no such thing as something I can't do, which every once in a while gets him in trouble. All right, Jeff Kerr's here with me, Jody Mack. We are Birds 365. Quickie timeout. We'll be joined by our buddy, Paul Domowitch, who was couch-bound yesterday watching an Eagle win. We'll get his thoughts next here on Birds 365.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
It is an after-win Monday here on Birds 365. Eagles get a victory down in Carolina against the Panthers. Jeff Kerr, Jody McDonald, joined by our good bud, Paul Domowitch, who, yes, got to watch the game relaxing rather than having to go down to Carolina and get in a hotel and then get a flight back and then come up. Did you miss the trip to Carolina, Mr. Domowitch?
You know, Charlotte's a nice town, but I don't miss any trips anymore.
Good for you, Damo. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Paul. It's a shame too because Charlotte was where I would have wanted to have been yesterday. I'm a big NASCAR fan. They raced the playoff race at the Roval yesterday, so gotta go there. Gotta go to NASCAR Hall of Fame, and of course the Eagles and Carolina played. My one buddy went to the Eagles game yesterday and was like, hey, this is a pretty nice stadium. And, he's from down south, and it's the first time he ever visited there. And I told him, I'm like, personally, being from the outside of it, it's one of the top 10 stadiums in the league.
Oh, yeah. Charlotte's a great city. Really is. And I need to mention it's Les Bowen's hometown. So
I had completely forgotten that. Shame on me. We've been breaking down a bunch of things here in the first hour and change of the show. I want to get your take on a couple of them. Nick Sirianni gets a win. Needed. I agreed wholeheartedly what he said after the game. It was a team win because each and every aspect of the team contributed yesterday. But truth be told, bigger win for the defense because Jonathan Gannon had been ripped up the last couple of weeks. Granted, the level of talent that he was playing against took a little bit of a drop down yesterday. Dallas offense, Kansas City offense, Panthers offense. But he did get the job done. How much does it mean to Gannon and that room, the defense side of the ball, with the effort they put forward yesterday, Domo?
I mean, this was about as needed as water when you spent 2 weeks in the desert. I mean, that ride home for him must have been really nice after last week. I'm sure he heard a lot of as close to Nick Sirianni gets to screaming and yelling. Certainly his job wasn't on the line, but I mean, Jonathan Gannon's supposed to be, a revered defensive coordinator. And last week he was just embarrassed. So to come back, have his team bounce back with a performance like that against a team like Carolina was huge for their confidence. And, going forward, I think it'll help them a lot. Not necessarily Thursday, but going forward.
Yeah, speaking of Thursday, I kind of jumping the gun a little bit here, but Tom Brady obviously has like the hand injury, the finger injury. He downplayed it. Bruce Arians downplayed it, but they had some interesting comments about this Eagles team saying, look, we know we can't take them lightly. We did that last year with the Bears, and we lost our Thursday night game. So, is it possible the Eagles are just getting respect around the league?
Well, I mean, coaches look at this team and, they realize that offense can score against anybody. The first half yesterday being an exception. But they've got a lot of weapons. So, I mean, no matter how good a defense you have, and right now Tampa Bay's got, their corners are hurt. They're banged up. So, I mean, they're worried about the Eagles' ability to score points on Sunday. And plus, Jalen Hurts has earned some respect around the league, not only for passing, but for the pressure he puts on the defense with his legs, as we saw yesterday in the second half.
Damo, Miles Sanders got a couple of screen passes thrown his way early yesterday. They went nowhere fast. No, you're just watching it on TV like the rest of it. You're not watching game film or anything else, but the screen game wasn't working. They stuck with it, and it continued not to work. Was it the Miles Sanders? Was it the quarterback laying the ball out there for him? Was it the blocking schemes? Contributed to a pretty shaky first half was the fact that the short passing game to the running back out of the backfield was not working. From what you saw, reasons to ferret out blame on this one?
Well, I mean, the screen game has been one of the positives for that offense in the first 4 games. It's been very successful. They were averaging about 9-10 yards a pass attempt on screens. I think Carolina just knew they were going to see a lot of it and basically said, you're not going to beat us that way. One of my criticisms of Nick yesterday was that he kept going to it in the first half. He just wouldn't try other things. Well, he tried other things. I mean, the quick slants were taken away. They were taken away a lot. I was kind of wondering why early on. Why aren't you running more zone reads with Hurts? Force them to spread out a little bit more, and that finally ended up being the case in the second half. I mean, that's what did it on that 2-point conversion. So their screen game is good. It's going to be one of their strengths all year. But if you don't succeed in other parts of your game, teams are just going to focus on it. They're going to bring everybody up. They're going to jump those routes, and you're not going to be able to block them. And that's what happened yesterday. So they just need to. They started to have some success in other places. The deep ball, that pass down the sidelines to Watkins, another one to Smith. So, I think it was just a matter of Carolina being aware of it and daring them to beat them someplace else.
Well, one of the things I thought was interesting about this team going into yesterday was I was surprised to see they were one of the few teams in the league with top 10 passing and rushing offense. And I know you've pointed this out. They're really good running the ball on first down. So, and a lot of this has to do with Jalen Hurts, but why doesn't this team or this coach feel they should run the ball more and set up these second and manageable situations?
Yeah. I think until yesterday, Jeff, that they view the screen game as an extension of the run game. So, while everybody rips them for not having enough runs per game, I think Nick says, well, we've got the RPO game, which he considers the run game because it's a run until it's a pass. And then you've got the screens, which are essentially, a run. I mean, every pass is going to be complete, or virtually everyone, just a matter of what you do when you get the ball to that guy in space. So, but yesterday I felt they needed to start running it because they were taking away the screens. And, the run game ended up at the end being a valuable weapon. Why they didn't turn to it earlier, I don't know. And I like both Sanders and Gainwell in the run game and the pass game.
He became big play Slay yesterday. Darius Slay, since he's come over and gotten the big contract, has been a stone cold solid defender in the Eagles secondary. And even though I thought the optics of it were bad last week when he said, "Hey, I'm doing my job. I don't know what the big deal is." He just shouldn't have gone there. What he said was right. He has done a nice job in coverage. Finally became big play Slay with a couple of interceptions. Much needed. I guess that hits concept does work, huh, Damo? The turnover part of it did kick in.
Yeah, we're not seeing any, punching the ball out or stripping the ball for forced fumbles yet, but we're seeing, yesterday we saw some interceptions. They can get 3 a game. They can beat anybody.
Paul, I'll reiterate what Joey said. I think the secondary as a whole has been playing pretty good. Despite the injuries, and Steve Nelson's been okay, hasn't been terrible, which is good for Eagles cornerbacks. But Monte Max has been good in the slot. Overall, what are your thoughts of the secondary through 5 weeks?
You're right. I mean, the problem early on has not been the secondary; it's been the pass rush, and that changed yesterday. We saw Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat all have nice games. I mean, Fletcher Cox finally was heard from. I mean, at some point, I thought they were going to I thought the Eagles might think about putting his picture on a milk carton. I mean, he just was invisible. I know he'll tell you, oh, double team, triple team. If you're supposed to be the second best defensive tackle in the game, play like it. And he hadn't been. Yesterday he did. Hargrave's been solid all season long. Sweat yesterday. And all of their sacks and pressures were coming on third down, which is why Carolina did not convert many third downs, along with the fact that Sam Darnold was the quarterback. So that pass rush is what changed yesterday. Their secondary has been playing pretty solid all year long. Avonte Maddox had an outstanding game yesterday. That ball he knocked away, that deep ball was that was just perfect timing. I mean, you watch that, you can't watch that enough. It's just, if I had a son that was a DB, I mean, I would just watch this for about an hour. Watch how he plays it.
I agree wholeheartedly. The timing of the play in the play was great, and the timing of the play in the game was very necessary. They needed that big play there, and Avonte Maddox gave it to him. All right, speaking of big plays, we've been debating him a little bit earlier in the show. Jalen Reagor, we're now a season and 5 games into his career as a Philadelphia Eagle. He was a first-round draft pick. We understand that. Unfortunately for him, Jefferson was taken just behind him, and he continues to do what he does in Minnesota, which makes his job more difficult. But his job is his job, and we've got 22 games logged, and he hasn't made a major breakout play for me in any of them. And many games, you're like, well, what did Reagor do? Yeah, not much again. Damn, where were you at with Jalen Reagor in your evaluation of him? The Eagles are in one place, the coaching staff's in another. Give me the Paul Domowitch 22 games in evaluation of Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's their third wide receiver. He's the guy you use on those screens that didn't work yesterday. He's the guy you use on jet sweeps. Is he the guy you count on third down? No. I mean, maybe that changes, but right now, if I'm looking at go-to guys besides Dallas Goedert, it's obviously Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins. It's not Jalen Reagor. I don't know what's. I think when they did not draft him. I mean, I was like everyone else mystified that they didn't take Jefferson. I did not think that Reagor was a player that couldn't play. I just didn't think you took him ahead of Justin Jefferson. So I think I'm still there. I think Reagor will be okay. I don't think he's going to be a Pro Bowl player, which is what you're supposed to be getting when you draft that high. But they were fortunate. I mean, Quez, with a lot of guys where they miscalculated, they have been fortunate enough to be lucky on the back end with Watkins late in the draft to kind of counter the fact that Reagor hasn't panned out. That it's happened with some of their offensive linemen. I mean, Dillard didn't pan out, and you got a 7th round player like Mulata and another 4th round pick like Driscoll that are panning out. So, they've been fortunate that way. But Reagor is, I think, he'll be better than he's shown in these first 5 games. But I don't think he's ever going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't think he's ever going to be, the go-to guy for Jalen Hurts.
Paul, I got a chance to speak to Jalen Hurts late Friday afternoon, and if I had to write a column on him, Paul Domowitch style, I probably would go with this. This guy just doesn't seem to care what people think of him. Good or bad. We talked about the rat poison for about 10 minutes, what rat poison actually is, which was pretty hilarious because he was laughing about the entire thing. And, I'm thinking to myself, this guy might end up being pretty good after all.
Yeah. I've been a Hurts fan since the day they drafted him. I didn't, at the time, I mean, I know why they drafted him. It wasn't to be their number 1 quarterback necessarily, but I felt he could be. You're right about his resilience. I mean, and I think a lot of that goes to his personal experience. I mean, look what happened at Alabama. I mean, guys like, that destroys a lot of guys. He stayed there. He learned from it, soaked up everything he could from Saban before he ends up transferring. Oklahoma, he was told not to go there. I mean, he went there because Saban said, go where, the best players are. And that was Oklahoma. But, you're going into a program like that cold. It's a difficult challenge. And he stepped in there, learned the offense right away, and ended up having a Heisman, finalist type of year. So, he's getting better. Yesterday he shakes off a horrible first half and ends up, saving them at the end with his legs, with his arm. That pass to Goddard on the 1 scoring drive late in the game. That pass to I mean, he's going to make bad plays. I mean, he missed Watkins down the field. That's what he needs to clean up. He can't. You just can't miss that kind of stuff. You can't miss Zach Ertz in the end zone last week when he was wide open. Those are the things he needs to get better at. But I mean, I think this kid's going to be a good quarterback. I think they're not going to have to go looking for a quarterback at the end of this year.
We shall see how it plays itself out. And you're right, Jalen didn't have the best of games yesterday, but he made the big plays, mostly with his feet when he needed to, when he won the game, which I think kind of outweighs everything else. But part of the reason why he didn't have his best game was the offensive line wasn't as good this week as it was last week. I know they're throwing it together on the fly, so many injuries, guys like Lane Johnson being out, personal reasons. I didn't agree with the way the Eagles aligned their line yesterday. Johnny Mack did. He even knew how they were going to do it because he got to see practice, and he was told, listen, you will not be divulging how we're planning on using our offensive line. Okay, he knew he had to keep it under his hat. I think Mailata's your left tackle, and if he's back, he needs to be your left tackle, not move to the right side. He's certainly more capable of doing it than Andre Dillard is, but when you have an option of plugging in a Nate Herbig, who I thought was pretty damn good the week before, that's the way I would have gone. I would have put Mailata back in and just taken Dillard out. Instead, the Eagles did some musical chair work, and Driscoll moved back inside. I didn't think he was terrible filling in for Lane Johnson last week either. I thought they could have done a better job aligning their offensive line. My partner, Johnny Mack, is a big Dillard fan, so he's stuck by Dillard. He didn't play terribly. He didn't play great. But Mailata played bad on the right side.
Yeah.
A couple of penalties, got beat back-to-back plays by Hassan Reddick. And I asked John if thought they would reevaluate coming into this week. Said, no, they'll stay exactly with what they're doing. How do you make it, Damo? They do the right thing by putting the offensive line together the way they did, because we don't know when Lane Johnson is coming back.
Yeah, and that's where they've got an advantage over us, Jody. They've got to know when he's coming back or if he's coming back. The fact that they've moved Jordan over there makes me wonder about two things. One, is he coming back? And they just realize this is a long-term. They've got to do this because, they're looking at the rest of the season and, they can't move Dillard over there. And Dillard's played well enough to continue to be a part of this offensive line, but he can't play right tackle. So he's strictly a left tackle. And they believe Mailata, even though he had a rough time yesterday, is more versatile and can basically, settle in there at right tackle. So that makes me wonder about what's going on with Lane and whether he will be back. The other possibility is they don't want Dillard out of the lineup because, the trade deadline's at the end of October, I believe.
Correct.
And midseason. So you still want to hang out. You still want to give people a good look at him, especially if he's going to start to play well here. And so that you can get his, if Lane comes back and you want to consider trading him. So, but they suffered in the short term yesterday. I mean, I was shocked, even though Mailata was playing a different position, he got beat really handily on those two plays. But again, almost like Hurts, the kid's resilient. I mean, he goes up to, you guys listen to the press conferences and he goes to Hurts after Hurts is struggling and tells him, next play. An offensive lineman that hadn't played football 3 years ago is telling his quarterback this. It's a nice thing to see.
Yeah, Paul, one player, it's so hard for me to make a determination on him. He's in his 5th year now, and I've talked to my old high school coaches about that. I played defensive end in high school. I don't look good now, but, college coaches. Derek Barnett gets pressure on the quarterback. He can stop the run. He makes a lot of plays, but he also does a lot of bonehead decisions. But yesterday was one of those good performances. I really don't know what to make of this guy so far.
Yeah. I think he's a good player. You're right. To just make some dumb plays. He's not consistent enough for me. But he's, he can set the edge. He can rush the passer. I don't think he's going to be back because they're not going to want to, he's not worth the money. He's making $10 million this year in the option year, which, they had to think long and hard about doing. I think next year they just let him go and go in another direction to find help there because they're obviously going to need help. I mean, Brandon's, I'm sure, going to try to come back, but he's 34 years old. I mean, that's an area that they've got to strengthen in the off season. They're going to have a lot of ways to do it. They're going to have a lot of draft picks. If they don't need a quarterback, you probably see them go after one of the top edge rushers in the draft. They're going to have a lot of money and space with Wentz off the books and the cap going through the roof so that they can get any free agent out there they want. So it's going to be an important off season for them to restructure that defensive line.
Along those lines, Damo, you mentioned the trade deadline, which is 3 weeks from tomorrow. November 2nd is the actual trade deadline. Let's say the Eagles win 2 out of their next 3 games. Yeah, they get beat by Tampa, but then they win their next 2 games, which are both winnable. They'll probably be underdogs in both, but they find a way to win. And we're sitting here, and the Eagles are all of a sudden 4-4 after 8. They're at the trade deadline. Are they trading Andre Dillard for a draft pick? That's a possibility, which if you do that, then you're certainly not helping this year's team addition of a draft pick. Or are they actually trying to add a piece, like maybe an extra defensive end? You guys are higher on Barnett than I am. I'm done with him. I've moved on from him. He's like Vincent Velasquez for me. At some point, no matter how long you try and say, give the guy a shot, give the guy, he flashes. Oh, he flashed for me. Give him another shot. No, I moved on from Vince Velasquez. I've moved on from Barnett too. You're right, Damo, when you say they need more defensive end. Who knows when Brandon Graham comes back at? What if somebody's available at the defensive end position who's got another year to go on his contract? Yeah. Could the Eagles actually be buyers at the trade deadline?
Well, they don't have a lot of cap flexibility, so that would
Damo, as a matter of fact, they're number 2 in the NFL with cap space as of right now. Now, Howie Roseman has mortgaged the future. He's got Fletcher Cox. If they ever want to move away from Fletcher Cox, they'll be screwed like they're screwed with Carson Wentz this year. Howie's done a lot of pushing money into the future. They have flexibility this year. They could add somebody if they wanted to.
Yeah. You know, it's not going to be a veteran, an older guy. If they can somehow find a younger guy that's available that they really are high on, you know, let's say they're 4-4 at the end of October. You know, I think they realize now the NFC East is not winnable. The Cowboys aren't going to do what the Cowboys usually do. So, I mean, right now they're one of the best teams in the league. In my mind, they're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league. And I don't think that's going to change unless they are just devastated by injuries, which would mean the quarterback going down and maybe one of their wide receivers. So that's where they're going to have to make the buy or sell decision. Can they win a wild card spot? You know, look around the league. I don't think that's realistic. I mean, I had them pegged for an 8-9 season, which I thought was pretty good considering where they're coming from and where they want to go. So they're kind of caught in that spot where you don't know whether you want to be a buyer or a seller. You don't want to mortgage the future. But if somebody's out there that you can get on the cheap that you maybe like better than most people, you do it. I don't think they'd give Dillard away unless they get a really good price, and I doubt that's going to happen. Somebody would have to be in a situation where, you know, they're a playoff team whose left tackle just went down the week before, 2 weeks before, and they just need help right away. And, you know, that situation happened, you know, several years ago when that's how they got the great deal for Sam Bradford. Could it happen again? Sure. Will it? Probably not. So if you were asking me, I'd say Dillard's going to be on this roster long-term.
Paul, one of the reasons I'll stick up for Howie Roseman from time to time, and we know his draft history is not great, but one of the reasons I feel he keeps his job here, besides his close relationship with Jeffrey Lurie, is he just seems to finagle people in trades. And, you know, everybody likes to mention Jannard Avery. Well, I think it's a pretty good gamble right now what he did with the Dolphins. And the Dolphins look like they're going to get a top 5 pick. At the very best, the top 10. They look awful. The Colts, you know, you kind of want them to stay around, obviously, with the snap count thing, but you know, they don't look good. No. It's very possible the Eagles' highest pick in the draft may be their own. You got to give Howie Roseman credit for this stuff, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, he's got a few go-to places, just like Jalen's got some go-to receivers. Howie's got some go-to teams when he wants to make a trade and make a trade that can really help him. Miami's one of those spots. I mean, you look at several of the deals they've made over the last several years with the Dolphins going, you know, the trade up in the first round. I mean, you go all the way back to when they traded away Kiko Alonso and Byron Maxwell to trade up to get Carson Wentz. You know, so he's done a good, you know, he runs hot and cold. I mean, you know, you go back to, I mean, the reason he was executive of the year in 2017 was because everything he touched turned to gold. I mean, every move he made in the offseason, free agency wise, solidified that Super Bowl team. I mean, you know, Patrick Robinson, you can go down the list of guys that ended up being important role players in that Super Bowl winning team, you know, and he gets the credit for that. And then he goes and has just some horrific drafts. So, you know, everybody, nobody's perfect in the talent evaluation process. He doesn't get much of the benefit of the doubt because he's a non-football guy, and people look at him and say he never played the game, which he hasn't. But there's a lot of great talent evaluators that didn't play the game. And I'm not defending how he's made a lot of bad moves. He needs to be second guessed for a lot of them. I'm just saying that he's not a complete idiot. He's made a lot of good moves, including this year.
And as I noted earlier, I looked it up on Over the Cap. Eagles number 2 with cap space in the NFL. Jags have $30 million available. Eagles at 16.5. Broncos 16.1 and third. How he did that, I don't know. Other than I know he's got bad deals going on down the road and extended money and disposable years and the like. But he is in a pretty good spot if he wanted to add something. That's why I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about that 3 weeks from now when the trade deadline comes up. All right, national topic. I want to get your take on it too, Domo, because I know you follow the whole league. Yesterday, watching the Eagles, if I'm not watching a play, I go to the red zone. They're in commercial, watch a couple things, go back. If I miss a play, it's on DVR, so it's no big deal. Every time I turned in the red zone, the guy Scotty Hansen was saying, and they missed an extra point. I actually thought they were going to have an extra point zone channel yesterday. 12 missed PATs in the NFL. It absolutely had an impact on the games and the way the games were played and the like. Do you think the NFL is going to revisit that, Domo? 10 years ago, whatever it was, when they pushed it back from the stone cold given 10 yards out, 20-yard kick, everybody made 96% of the kicks. Not so much anymore. Is it a good thing or a bad thing for football?
No, I think it's a good thing. I mean, anytime you don't have a gimme play, it's a good thing. It's the same thing now with kickoff returns. I mean, touchbacks are happening 90% of the time now. Fox has decided sometimes to not even show it. I mean, they're still in commercial break, and they came back yesterday for a couple of times, and it was the Eagles had the ball on the 25-yard line because they're just gambling that we can make money on the commercial and nobody's going to return it for a touchdown. What's weird, Jody, is I think there may be more 50-yard field goals than ever before this year as well. So I mean, kickers have stronger legs than ever, and yet, like you said, I mean, so many missed extra points. But I like it. I don't like anything that's just a gimme. It adds some uncertainty to the situation and makes it. It also creates motivation to go for two. I don't know. I haven't checked the numbers to see if that's happening at a greater rate, but it should.
Paul, I got to get your take on the taunting penalties here. I think some of these have been absolutely ridiculous. And then I go see Ezekiel Elliott high step his way into the end zone. I'm like, well, isn't that the definition of taunting? But, they let that go. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, what is taunting now? Like, why can't you just let these guys have some fun?
That's what everybody wants to know. It's a weird deal because the players don't like it. The officials don't even like it. The coaches don't like it. The only people that seem to like it are the people in the Manhattan offices of the NFL. The officials don't like it because it's just so difficult to call. It's kind of like targeting. It just makes their job harder. I think eventually, it'll be discussed during the offseason, the taunting rule. I think it'll probably get eliminated either this year or next year.
All right, Damo, you mentioned you think the Cowboys wanted a 2 or 3, 3 or 4. I apologize for not remembering exactly. I'd like to quote you exactly. Did you say top 2 or 3 or top 3 or 4?
Top 3 or 4 right now.
3 or 4. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have them near that high. Certainly, I've got the Bills off what they did last night that high. Chargers are getting a whole lot of love over in the AFC. You got the Rams in the NFC, which people are singing their praises because of Matthew Stafford. And then there's the only undefeated team, the Arizona Cardinals, who, for my money, still aren't getting the respect they deserve because there's one undefeated team. The Miami Dolphins from the 70s have not had a chance to crack the champagne yet because of the Arizona Cardinals. Not anybody else are the Cardinals being underappreciated for what they've achieved in the first 5 games.
They are. And you know what? I'm guilty of that, not because I don't believe they're as good as they're playing, because now they have a defense. I mean, they've done an outstanding job of turning that team into a complete team. Steve Keim has just done a marvelous job of improving it. He's gotten Kyler Murray receivers. He's got AJ Green on one side, DeAndre Hopkins on the other. You've got running backs that can catch and run. It's going to be. I mean, they're going to be going to be there at the end. But I do power rankings for the 33rdteam.com, and a couple of weeks back, I'm still like, well, they still have to prove themselves. So I had them at like 4th or 5th, and the people I have in front of them just aren't doing anything to make to feel like you got to replace them. I mean, Tampa Bay is still is still the number one team on my list. You've got I believe the Cowboys are 3. I've got the Bills at 2. So, but I think the Cardinals. I mean, right now, I think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I mean, other years you wonder, are they a flash in the pan? Is Kyler Murray really that good a quarterback? He is. You see a lot of Jalen Hurts in him. He's a more instinctive player than Jalen as far as getting away from a rush. That's where another thing Jalen needs to work at. But I mean, just having that quarterback with that kind of mobility just changes your offense so much.
Speaking of the Cardinals, our old friend Jordan Hicks, I covered a lot of this during the summer. He looked dead in the water. If I would have bet the house on 2 things. Probably the Cardinals win the NFC West because I was a big believer. And Jordan Hicks was going to go somewhere. He was going to play Arizona's uniform. Not only was he named the captain, he's probably one of their best defensive players. It's just incredible what that defense has done through 5 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, Hicks, there was never any question about his ability. It was just whether he could stay healthy. He couldn't here. He can now. And if he stays healthy, he's not only a great player, but he's, like you said, he's a team captain. He's a great leader.
Damo, last thing, and I'll apologize in advance for asking this question. And again, my bad. And I apologize to Clark Judge last week because I should have given him a heads up. And I meant to do this with you again when I texted you and said, will you come on the show? And I forgot. So it's all on me, but I'm going to put you in a tough spot anyway. We asked Clark when we had him on last week, one of your fellow Hall of Fame voters, what he thought about Shady McCoy's Hall of Fame status. Because they brought Shady back, retired as an Eagle, had the ceremony last week. Good stuff. Good for Shady. Good for the Eagles. I have my opinion on whether Shady is a Hall of Fame back. Yours is much more important because you got to vote. And chances are they'll ask you to make the speech for Shady McCoy because according to Shady, he's an Eagle. Even though he got a Super Bowl ring with Tampa, even though he got a Super Bowl ring with Kansas City, even though he had some really good years with Buffalo, they'll probably say, Domowitch, you got to make the speech. You got to make the case if we're going to elect Shady as a Hall of Famer if he gets that far, which I think he will, because I think he's a borderline guy. I think he deserves to be presented by you or whoever else. I think he deserves consideration. I think he'll get past the opening stages, but I don't know that I could cast my vote for him as a Hall of Famer. I don't know if you've given it any thought. You're as good as you are at what you do, so you probably have. So I probably didn't need to apologize in advance, but I did. And if I have to, I apologize again. Give us your take, Shady McCoy, Hall of Famer.
Well, I have thought about it. I wrote about it last week for the 33rdteam.com. Let me preface this by saying, I mean, while I'm the Philadelphia representative on the Hall of Fame selection committee, I don't necessarily, if I don't believe a guy's, if a guy makes the final 15 and he's an Eagle and I don't believe he belongs in the Hall of Fame, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've always felt that way and made it clear in several times when I've written stories when I was with the Inquirer about Donovan McNabb. If he ever made it, which to the final 15, I'd have to be honest and say I don't think he belongs in. With Shady, I think he belongs in. I'll tell you why. I mean, his numbers are right now the 2 people that are going to get in before him that are of this generation are Frank Gore and Adrian Peterson. Both have better numbers as far as rushing, as far as yards from scrimmage, as far as overall touchdowns. So I think, both Gore and Peterson and Shady all are going to be eligible about 2026, and those 2 will be the first 2 in. I mean, Gore's like the 3rd leading rusher in NFL history. Shady's probably a better player, but I mean, Gore's Gore. I mean, he's put up the numbers and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Shady's numbers when you look at them, and when you look at other things, the 2-time All-Pro, the leading the league in rushing, which Gore never did, and I mean Peterson's a different case. Peterson's a slam dunk, but I think Gore will be too. I think Shady's going to have to wait a few years probably, because when you look at the pattern, and I have of it's usually one running back, no more than one running back a year. Sometimes one every 2 years. There's only been 1 year since 1990 that 2 running backs have gotten in. That was when Terrell Davis and wasn't that long ago got in. So, he's going to have to wait a little bit, but I think Shady will get in the Hall of Fame. And I think, honestly, when I look at his numbers, and I had a chance to, and I talked to Vic Carucci about this, who's another Hall of Fame selector who's from Buffalo, watched him play after he left Philadelphia. And he's also strongly believes, and he saw a Shady that had been run down by Chip Kelly. I mean, 300 carry seasons. It wasn't the same Shady that went to Buffalo that was playing in Philadelphia. So, and he still believes what he saw there was a Hall of Fame player. So, I believe Shady belongs in the Hall of Fame. It's just that he's going to have to wait longer than Gore and Peterson.
Dama, good stuff. And I guess you can call me the Hall of Fame Grinch, because I don't think Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer either. I think Peterson's the only one out of those 3 who actually deserves to get in, but that's why they don't invite me to vote. That's why they have guys like you vote, because
you're a baseball guy. And the difference is the Football Hall of Fame is not the Baseball Hall of Fame.
It is definitely
there's a different criteria. You're a little bit more open to letting people in. I mean, every year there's the maximum 5 that get in. Baseball's, there are years when nobody gets in. So
a little bit tougher on both, but I like the differences between both the baseball and the Football Hall of Fame. That's kind of what makes it fun. Dom, it's always fun to talk to you. We will get you back on about a month from now. Thanks for hopping on with us today. Have a good month, buddy.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Paul Domowitch here with us on Birds 365. All right. Yeah, sorry. I just think Shady's close, but on the outside looking in. Same thing for Frank Gore. I actually usually defend compilers, guys who put up big numbers by staying around. And I think there's something to be said for staying around. If you can continue to stay around and not get cut and still make plays and still get yards, even if they're not mega important yards, usually that's pretty important. It's just something about Frank Gore that, I know what he did, but he just never did it for a great thing. You think Gore's a Hall of Fame back, Jeff Kerr?
Well, I look at it this way. I was watching baseball playoffs the other day, and Nelson Cruz is still rocking for Tampa. And I started thinking to myself, I'm going to look up his numbers. I'm like, is Nelson Cruz a Hall of Famer? I don't know. And Frank Gore, I think he is, just because I look at Frank Gore this way. After 30, he is far and away the most productive running back in NFL history. And I think that's ultimately what's going to get him in.
And who knows? Maybe he'll sign on with a team for the home stretch, because he never seems to go away. He's always coming back. Maybe he's got one more comeback in him. All right, he's Jeff Kerr. I'm Jody McDonald. We're running late. Come back, put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of stateside vodka. So good, it just disappears.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
All right, running out of time. We thank Domowitch for coming on. It's always good whenever we have Damo. So, no, for sure, Damo's going to be back. Show flew right by. Thanks to you, Jeff Kerr. Outstanding job by you. Getting a lot of positive feedback on the stream today. You took Jalen Hurts is back. That's going to win over Eagle fans. Jeff Kerr, good job out of you.
I'm just telling it like it is, Jody. I get tired of – and look, I was getting tired of this yesterday too. We want to bring this up. The Darius Slay. Look, I'm a big Darius Slay fan too. But people getting on our buddy Glenn Mack now for his comments last week. Where's Glenn Mack now after that? I'm like, calm down. Darius has been playing really well this season. I've been defending him. But do we really need to go after every media member that criticizes one player?
Yeah, that's what Philadelphia does. I know I've been the eye of the storm a couple of times myself. Not often, but every once in a while. And you take your shots and you move on. And that's perfectly fine. But good job out of you. One last thing before we go. Carson Wentz tonight. Does he play 100% of the snaps in the Colts game? We need it. Tell me it's the case, Jeff Kerr.
Yeah, he'll play 100% of the snaps. And I think the Colts will play the Ravens tough. But the Ravens are a better team. And from a fantasy football standpoint and a betting standpoint, I need the Ravens to win. I need Lamar Jackson to get me 23 points because I do not feel like being the only person in the league to score over 130 points and lose this week because my buddy decided to put up 200 the week. I score 170. So,
all right. So Jeff Kerr has fantasy implications in tonight's game. Eagle fans have Carson implications. We both think he's going to play, stay healthy, stay in the field, close game, and lose, which will help the Eagles. We're getting very specific in our desires tomorrow. We'll be back here in 22 hours on Birds 365 to tell you whether we got it right or wrong and continue to analyze the Birds, both looking back at the win this week and, oh, no, we need to jump ahead because they're playing on Thursday night against Tampa. So we will begin to look ahead early tomorrow. Good job out of you, Jeff Kerr. Thanks for watching, everybody. Catch you tomorrow on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple,